Dwayne and
Yeah.
I, talking about the highlights of the 2+2 dialogue. What are the big takeaways today?
Well, I think it's really important to note that this is only the second time that we have had this 2+2 dialogue between the United States and India. This is the first time that it's being held in the United States. And we have very few of these around the world. So I think that this shows the significance of the United States bilateral relationship with India, that we were able to have these conversations. India, of course, is someone that's incredibly important to us in a number of institutions around the world, and the relationship is certainly important in the President Trump's Indo-Pacific strategy.
Right, but what were the highlights here? I mean, the big takeaways here today that were discussed and, that will be finalized soon.
Yeah, so I think the importance of continuing communications, continuing and ongoing security dialogues. We have a number of issues as it relates to counterterrorism, as it relates to economics, trade, security. And then, of course, what's mostly important is that as the world's oldest and the world's largest democracy, that we communicate on a range of these issues. So what you're going to start seeing is increased security cooperation between both of our ministries of defense. And on the foreign ministry side here at the State Department, this is one of the most vibrant relationships that we have around the world.
Right. Now, trade is something that has been in news. You have India and US talking about it, and even Minister Jaishankar did talk about it, how it's a balanced outcome
Yeah.
that was discussed today. Can you elaborate on that, on what really was discussed, and
Sure.
when can we see something happen?
So the primary trade discussions are happening between Ambassador Lighthouser, who is our trade representative here in the United States, and then of course his counterpart in India. So the purpose of today's discussion between the foreign ministers and the ministers of defense is primarily focused on those diplomatic and security relationships. So the main outcome today for these meetings was not related to trade because that's happening in a different channel. But Secretary Pompeo and his counterpart, of course, noted the importance of a continuing and growing economic relationship between our two countries.
Now, Secretary Pompeo, Defense Minister Singh, and of course the EM did talk about Pakistan, and they highlighted the dangers of cross-border terror from Pakistan. Could you elaborate on what was discussed on the regional security front?
Well, another area that we're working quite closely is, of course, in Afghanistan, and our special representative for Afghanistan has been working quite closely with all of the regional partners, including India, as we try to get to a peaceful resolution in Afghanistan. And so the only way we get to peace in Afghanistan is through partnerships with countries like India in the region to help us bring all people to the table. So we obviously will talk about counterterrorism. We obviously talked about Afghanistan, as I just said, and our ongoing efforts there. But when you have such an important relationship, it gives us the ability to talk about all of the major challenges in the world, whether it's China, Russia, North Korea, whatever it is. India is a very, very important friend to the United States and someone that we lean upon in helping us solve these big problems. And I think there's a real recognition here from Secretary Pompeo and from the leadership is that while we have a vision for the Indo-Pacific and what that means for America, we cannot accomplish our Indo-Pacific strategy without India. They're a key and crucial partner in that effort. And so whatever big issues in the world that we're trying to solve, we're often going to India and asking for their consultations and advice and help on those issues.
Now, the citizenship amendment bill has been gathering a lot of headlines.
Sure.
Human rights is a big concern for everyone watching India. But do you think that the government of India says it's an internal matter? What is the United States front on this one?
Well, it's important to note, you said that there's a lot of headlines about this. Why is there a lot of headlines about it? Well, there is because India has a free press. India has a vibrant democracy. India has the ability for the court system to review all legislation. So what you're seeing, what we're observing, is a vibrant democracy that is debating, that is discussing this bill and what it means for the future of India. And so we say, first and foremost, you don't get to have that conversation in many countries. And the fact that the world's largest democracy is debating this so openly and so publicly in a free press is crucially important. Freedom Ministerial, we have had a report, and every single country is outlined in there, and every country is assessed for how they're doing on religious freedom. So it's certainly a crucial tenet for us to encourage all countries of the world to respect religious minorities and to respect individual dignity and freedom.
Right. Just yesterday, China did rake up the issue of Kashmir at the UN, and within hours, this story was taken back, and the inquiry was postponed. Do you have to say something about the timing of this, the 2+2 happening just hours before this thing just magically getting postponed? What do you have to say about that?
Well, the 2+2 has been planned for a long time, but we've been working on it for the past year. So any moves that China took at the UN were, I don't think that they coordinated with us on scheduling. We've been working on this for a long time.